All right, Commissioner Tolliver, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, and Commissioner Jekowitz, wonderful. It is 12:45, so I guess we can get started. This is the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, a regular meeting, Thursday, October 6th. I'd like to call the meeting to order with the roll call. If you could indicate that you can hear and see me after I call your name, that would be wonderful. Vice Chair, Commissioner Jekowitz.
Here, I can hear and see you.
Thank you. I think we're waiting for Commissioner Cox. Commissioner Burns.
Here, I can see and hear you. Hello.
Thank you. Commissioner Fair.
Here, I can see and hear you as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes.
Present, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ponce.
Here I can see and hear you.
Wonderful. And Commissioner Tolliver.
Here I can see and hear you.
All right, we're all here. I'm Ernie Wong. I am the chair of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks. We do have a quorum. In 2020, Governor Pritzker signed Public Act 101-0640, making certain amendments to the Open Meetings Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of those conditions is that I, as head of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, determine that an in-person meeting of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks and its Permit Review Committee are not practical or prudent. I want to make sure that our virtual meetings meets all the conditions of the Open Meetings Act as amended. Therefore, I'm making a determination pursuant to Section 7E2 of the Open Meetings Act that an in-person meeting of this Commission on Chicago Landmarks and its Permit Review Committee is not practical or prudent. Similarly, I'm also making a determination pursuant to Section 7E5 that because of the disasters declared by the governor, it is unfeasible for at least one member of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks or its chief administrative officer or its chief legal officer to be physically present at the meeting place for either meeting. Pursuant to a resolution adopted by the Commission on Chicago Landmarks on June 4th, 2020, regarding the chairman's emergency rulemaking powers, I issued emergency rules governing the conduct of remote public commission meetings and provisions for remote public participation effective February 18th, 2022. These rules were posted on the Commission's website. In line with those emergency rules, today's regular Commission meeting is a virtual meeting being simulcast to the general public via live streaming. Commission meetings have been held virtually since May of 2020. Meetings were structured to minimize the chances for technical difficulties. Members of the general public have been encouraged to submit written statements in advance of the meeting, and these have been posted on the Commission's website and are available for viewing during the virtual meeting at www.chicago.gov/ccl. Per their emergency rules, verbal statements by the general public for all agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting so that all wishing to speak at today's meetings should be signed in to the Zoom meeting at this time. Before we hear staff presentations on the agenda items, after which we will ask to hear from owners or applicants and their teams, we'll open the floor up to members of the general public who wish to comment on the items to be heard on today's agenda. Comments should pertain only to the agenda items. Members of the general public wishing to comment should use the raise hand function of Zoom to indicate that they wish to speak. Members of the public not connecting via computer / smartphone and instead phoning into the meeting should press *9 to activate the raise hand function and to do the same to deactivate it. I or the meeting facilitator will call out the meeting names one by one and unmute those people. Once unmuted, speakers should give their full name and organization if any of they represent. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes to speak. Once all members of the public wishing to make a comment have been given the opportunity to do so, we'll go through the agenda. I would ask that owners or applicants and their representatives, as well as aldermen, wait to speak until after the staff presentations have been made on their agenda item. We'll call on you then. Are there members? And also, just for the record, Commissioner Cox has joined us, so we do have a full quorum as well. Are there members of the general public who'd like to make a comment on agenda item number 2, the Citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund application for the Greenstone Church located at 11211 South St. Lawrence Avenue?
Chairman, we have two hands raised. The first one is Mr. Ward Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Floor is yours.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
We sure can.
All right. Dear Chairman Wong, members of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, and welcome to Commissioner Jonathan Fair. I'm Ward Miller, Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. We at Preservation Chicago fully support the Adopt a Landmark grant and funding for the Greenstone Church in Pullman. This historic structure is located at 11211 South St. Lawrence Avenue in the Pullman Landmark District, and also part of the Pullman National Monument, and hopefully one day in the future, part of a Pullman National Park designation. The Greenstone Church, now known as the Greenstone United Methodist Church, is a cornerstone of the Pullman community. Its prominent location, fronting Arcade Park at 112th and St. Lawrence Avenue, holds a commanding presence on this public square, anchoring its southeast corner. In addition to the historical aspects of the church's long history and association with the Pullman community, the structure was designed by architect Solomon S. Beeman and has been widely published and celebrated since its completion in 1882. We also recognize the need to address the deterioration of the lovely serpentine green sandstone of the corner tower with a more durable material, which will resemble the sandstone in appearance. This is a very creative and much needed repair, and we are pleased to see an investment in this landmark building, as well as the support of this work as part of the Citywide Adopt a Landmark program. We at Preservation Chicago want to thank the department and the Commission for this unique program, which continues to be a huge asset and incentive to the city's landmarks program. This program reinvests developer-generated funds into many of our treasured world-class landmarks, which in turn is not only a commitment to our designated landmarks, but also greatly benefits our communities and neighborhoods across the city, much like Pullman. This reinvestment in our landmarks and historic structures is also considered good development and the most sensitive type of development, which we sometimes all collectively overlook with new and often much larger and vast construction projects in a large city like Chicago. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Your commitment to our designated Chicago landmarks through the 10% set aside of the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. We at Preservation Chicago fully support the reuse of these funds for the historic Greenstone United Methodist Church tower and building in Pullman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward. Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Kendra Parson.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Excellent. Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Kendra Parson, and I'm Advocacy Manager for Landmarks Illinois. I'd like to express the enthusiastic support of Landmarks Illinois for Greenstone Church's Adopt a Landmark application. Greenstone Church, located in the Pullman Landmark District, was built in 1882 to serve as a church for all denominations in the company town of Pullman. The church building is notable for its distinctive green serpentine stone exterior, now urgently in need of repair. Landmarks Illinois has worked closely with Greenstone Church on preservation efforts over the past several years. Our support has included arranging a pro bono conditions assessment by Janney Elsner Associates in 2016, which identified prioritized repair recommendations for the church. WJE's assessment laid solid groundwork for the application before you today. Providing funds for these critical repairs to Greenstone Church through the Adopt a Landmark program will make a meaningful difference in the life of this historic building and enable it to continue to serve its congregation and community. To put our money where our mouth is, in January 2021, Landmarks Illinois announced our own grant to support restoration work at Greenstone Church through the Timuel D. Black Jr. Grant Fund for Chicago's South Side. Landmarks Illinois is committed to maintain its support of preservation efforts for Greenstone Church and will continue to offer our expertise to the congregation as they undertake the work of this award and other preservation initiatives. Thank you for this opportunity to express our support.
Thank you, Ms. Parson. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak on this item?
And no other hands raised, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Are there members of the general public who'd like to comment on the fourth agenda item, the program committee report regarding nominations to the National Register of Historic Places for the Muddy Waters House, the Stone Temple Baptist Church, and the Schlitz Brewery Tide House at 9401 South Ewing?
We have one hand raised, Mr. Ward Miller.
Okay, Mr. Miller, floor is yours.
Briefly, commissioners, we wanted to express our enthusiasm for these three candidates to the National Register of Historic Places in the Illinois Historic Sites Advisory Council in Springfield for the Muddy Waters House, Stone Temple Baptist Church, and the Schlitz Brewery Tide House buildings. These are remarkable structures. We testified in support of them at before the program committee. And we wanted to, on behalf of the larger preservation and architecture community in Chicago, as well as our own organization, Preservation Chicago, we wanted to enthusiastically support these nominations to the National Register. So thank you. All three of them have been projects that many of us and many of our organizations have been involved in the past. So we're grateful to have these before the ISAC committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ward. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this item? If not, I believe that's all the members of the general public who have indicated they wish to speak on agenda items. Therefore, this concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. Before we proceed, I'd like to welcome a newly appointed member of the commission, Jonathan Fair. Jonathan is a licensed architect and the Director of Planning and Design for the University of Illinois, Chicago. An advocate for effecting change through design, Jonathan is committed to fostering student success through the development of a vibrant and energized urban campus. He has helped to redefine the university's approach to land use and the design and function of campus grounds and facilities. As a well-accredited professional, Jonathan is a champion for the development of spaces that promote wellness and healthfulness on campus. In his free time, Jonathan volunteers with organizations including Global Shapers, Open Architecture Chicago, and the National Organization of Minority Architects, and has provided pro bono architectural services for numerous nonprofit organizations. Welcome to the commission, Jonathan. Would you like to say anything?
No, just happy to be here. I think you touched on a lot of the things I was going to say, Ernie. With the work that I do here at the university, we obviously have our own collection, if you will, of buildings and facilities that are not only architecturally significant, but also culturally significant. So interested in bringing kind of that background to this commission and also participate in just some of the excellent work that this commission has already been doing. So very excited to be here.
We are delighted. Thank you, Commissioner Fair. I'd like to call for the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, the regular meeting of September 8th, 2022.
So moved, Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you. Is there a
Seconded,
second?
Commissioner Burns.
Commissioner Burns is, I'll do the roll call so we can start that out. Commissioner Jekowitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns. Oh, wait a minute, did you?
I
Commissioner-
seconded, but I'm a
Oh.
yes too.
Okay, sorry about that. Commissioner Fair,
Yes.
Commissioner Ponce,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolliver,
Yes,
and I'm a yes as well. The minutes are approved. Okay. Second item on the agenda is the Citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund application for the Pullman District. This is the Greenstone Church located at 11211 South St. Lawrence Avenue in the 9th Ward. And Dan Kleiber, you have the floor.
Can you hear me okay?
We sure can.
Good afternoon, commissioners. At the December 2021 commission meeting, we informed you of 12 projects that DPD conditionally awarded grants to from the 2021 Adopt a Landmark application funding round. You may recall that each of the projects are required to come back to the commission for a vote once their scope and budget are fully developed. One of the applicants, Greenstone United Methodist Church, has finalized the budget and scope for their project. Greenstone is requesting $1,084,235 in Adopt a Landmark funds for exterior envelope work totaling $1,136,121. It should be noted that the specific scope of work presented here today was reviewed and conditionally approved by the Permit Review Committee at its June 2022 meeting. For orientation, the Greenstone Church is located at 11211 South St. Lawrence Avenue within the Pullman community area and the 9th Ward. The Greenstone Church is a contributing building in what was originally designated as the South Pullman District in 1972. After the North Pullman District was designated in 1993, the two districts were joined administratively in 1999, and today the whole area is simply known as the Pullman District. In 2016, the area was further designated as Pullman National Monument, a unit of the National Park Service. The town of Pullman has been called the first planned industrial community in the United States. Conceived and built in the early 1880s, the town was the principal work of its founder, George M. Pullman, who wanted a complete community to support his railroad car factory business. The Calumet region offered both rail and water transportation facilities necessary for the operation of the business, and the decision to build there guaranteed Chicago's continuing role as the railroad center of the United States. The opening of the facilities also brought many persons to the area who were seeking employment, and the town became the focal point of the region's continued development and expansion. Architecturally, the town was the work of Solon S. Beeman and landscape architect Nathan F. Barrett. A key element of the original town is the Greenstone Church. The name of the Greenstone Church is derived from the green color of its New England serpentine stone facade. The massiveness of the masonry, coupled with the large spire and arches, suggests the influences of the Gothic Revival and Romanesque styles. Although the church was dedicated in 1882, it was opened only on special occasions until 1885. No denomination could afford to pay the high rents charged by Pullman, since, like the rest of the property within the town, it was expected to return a 6% profit on its cost. George Pullman would later confide that religion was not his only motive in establishing the church. He also expected the church to add to the visual appeal of the town. Originally rented by Presbyterians in 1885, the Greenstone Church has been home to the Methodist Church since 1907. Fast forwarding to today, Greenstone Church continues to be a neighborhood anchor. In addition to providing worship space for its own members, Greenstone United Methodist Church opens its doors to the broader Pullman community as well. The building is regularly used by the historic Pullman Foundation, the Pullman Civic Organization, the Boy Scouts, After School Matters, the Pullman Community Choir, and the National Parks Conservation Association, among many other groups. However, though they possess an attractive green color, the serpentine walls of the Greenstone Church currently exhibit areas of extensive deterioration resulting from 140 years of exposure to the elements. Previous attempts to repair the church have been mostly unsuccessful and have left the exterior masonry, specifically the main tower, crumbling and structurally compromised. The facades of the bell tower are currently netted to prevent falling stone, and the grounds are fenced off to reduce the risk of injury to the public. Serpentine is not available in 2022 as it is no longer quarried for building stone in the United States. It is also considered a poor material for exterior building stone, and its popularity was short-lived because of its fragility and difficulty of accepting common masonry treatment. As a porous stone, it is vulnerable to deterioration due to sulfur-based acidic deposition from atmospheric pollution in combination with freeze-thaw cycling. In 2017, WJE performed a limited condition assessment of the exterior facade. Spalling was noted at embedded anchors at various locations throughout the facade. Very extensive exfoliation was noted throughout the facade, and most notably on the bell tower. Vertical cracks, generally ranging between 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch wide, were also found at each corner of the bell tower. Previous attempts to repair the serpentine have been attempted at Greenstone with masonry repair mortars. These repairs have not been effective as the deteriorated stone provides an inadequate substrate for the mortar. Masonry repair mortars are also considered a Band-Aid as they have a limited life of 15 years and require regular maintenance in themselves. Despite the repair mortar patches, the stone continues to experience cracks and spalling near and under mortar patches. And by the way, for clarification, it should be noted on the west facade of the church, a yellow crust has formed on the surface of the serpentine. This is not the original color of the stone. In accordance with the Permit Review Committee's review and approval of this scope of work at its June 2022 meeting, the applicant will be replacing the deteriorated serpentine as part of the Adopt a Landmark project. Other green colored stones were considered as a replacement material, but based on research and experience, these alternate building stones have a significantly different appearance and physical properties. Therefore, the applicant will be using cast stone as a substitute material. Cast stone is an almost dry cement, lime, and aggregate mixture, which is dry tamped into a mold to produce a dense stone-like unit. It is more durable than the serpentine, with an expected service life greater than 75 years. A sample of the cast stone is shown here side by side with a historic serpentine unit. It should be noted that the pigmenting of the cast stone is integral throughout the entire matrix of the unit. The form into which the material is cast will be shaped to match the chiseled dressing marks of the historic stone. A mixed color design will be developed to accomplish matching the original color range. Based on observations of the existing random ashlar pattern, there appears to be a range of 8 to 10 repeating sizes. It is difficult to obtain exact dimensions of each unit due to the deteriorated condition of the stones. During the pre-construction process, the contractor and engineer will work with the cast stone supplier to generate a shop stone setting drawing illustrating the entire tower. If required, additional stone sizes will be added to increase the size range. The intent is to replicate the original facade. As part of the Permit Review Committee's conditional approval of the project, as proposed, number 1, complete photographic documentation and measured drawings of the existing conditions at the bell tower, including identification of existing stone sizes, shapes, colors, texture, and finishes, shall be submitted to the Historic Preservation staff with the permit application. 2, 100% of the serpentine on the bell tower shall be removed and replaced with new cast stone units matching the historic serpentine in the sizes, shapes, colors, textures, and finishes that currently exist. 3, replacement samples are to be submitted to Historic Preservation staff for review for approval prior to order and installation. 4, any removed stone that is in good condition shall be salvaged and stored on site to be used on other areas of the building that require repair. 5, as proposed, a shop stone setting drawing illustrating the entire tower shall be submitted to Historic Preservation staff with the permit application. 6, if required, additional stone sizes will be added to increase the size range to match the original facade. And 7, lastly, should unforeseen conditions require expansion in scope, the applicant shall notify Historic Preservation staff to review and approve additional work. In addition to replacing the deteriorated serpentine stone on the bell tower, the applicant is also proposing the following repairs to other features on the bell tower. 1, isolated repairs, cleaning and painting of the galvanized sheet metal cornice. And 2, repair and application of new perimeter sealant at the wood frame louvers. The resolution before you to grant the Adopt a Landmark funds to the applicant includes an Exhibit A, which outlines the scope of work and budget, which I just summarized, and which includes $1,084,235 in grant funds for the $1,136,121 project. This resolution and drawings were included in your packets. It should be noted here that due to the size of the proposed award, this project will also require City Council approval. In addition, Exhibit A includes the main conditions associated with the project. Most of these I have gone over already as they are part of the Permit Review Committee's conditional approval, but additionally, The applicant shall also notify commission staff of undocumented detrimental conditions found during work. The applicant shall enter into an escrow agreement to assure that the landmark project is completed and paid for in a timely manner, and final payment from the Adopt a Landmark funds is subject to certification by the Commissioner of the Department that the project was completed in accordance with the requirements of the Adopt a Landmark funds, the project scope of work and budget, the agreement, and the landmark guidelines. Should you vote to approve the project, the department will then work to introduce an ordinance to City Council authorizing the project as well. Greenstone Church anticipates beginning work in the spring of 2023. Again, the project is located in the 9th Ward. In addition, Wisjani Elsner, the project architect, as well as Berglund Construction, are both here along with Pastor Luther Mason. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have about the grant agreement process as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Does any of the commissioners have any questions for Dan at this time? And seeing none, does anybody have any questions of Wisjani or Berglund Construction regarding any of this? I had a couple of questions, and maybe this was covered during the PRC, but the thickness of the average thickness of the existing stone, I would imagine. Well, I would imagine the thickness, especially with the deterioration, varies quite a bit. So, as you're doing the cast stone replacement, is that going to be a typical thickness, or how is that being addressed? Anybody from
I think
Berglund?
Rachel Will or Jack Trivia would be the best to answer that question, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can start, and Jack, if you want to fill in any additional. So typically, I would say there's varying thicknesses based on the rustication of the stone, but the overall nominal thickness of the stone is probably either generally like a 4 or 8 inch. So we're going to try to keep to those. We're not going to make the cast stone just one thickness if we find that there are varied thicknesses, but I would say we won't match the exact thickness of each and every stone if they vary significantly, but they'll remain in the plane. And so there'll be no noticeable difference with that, because there is a backup material. There's a backup brick material, and there's some space between that stone and the brick that will accommodate for some of that. So from an aesthetic standpoint and a performance standpoint, it will perform well. Hopefully it will perform much better than the serpentine, but from an aesthetic standpoint will look very similar.
Great. And kind of accommodating that, is the lead time an issue, given where we've been with logistics these days and supply chain issues?
Jack Trivia with Berglund here. No, we've been in close contact with the cast stone manufacturer, and we've had great success in the past with their turnover, and are committed to the project. So right now we feel very comfortable that as long as we do on our end, we get them the information, they'll be able to produce and furnish the material in time per our construction schedule.
Fantastic. That's good to know. I had one last question, actually kind of a comment to Pastor Mason and the congregation. As the stone gets removed from the church itself, there is an opportunity to start selling pieces for of the stone to fund more of your work. So that's just a suggestion. And then I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Ponce.
And Commissioner Hughes had her hand raised. I don't know if you saw that.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just curious, you're talking about salvaging at least 25%. Can you talk about where that 25% stone is? And then the other material that I read, it seemed like it's very likely that 100% will be replaced. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the condition of the tower is very similar throughout, and it's very deteriorated, significant weathering. So we assumed 100% replacement for the tower because it's a discrete element. And I mean, if there's anything that we can salvage, we will do it. But based on what we've seen from the up close inspections, there's not a whole lot of locations that the stone has any integrity left. The 25%, I will say, is an estimate, right? Just saying that we don't know exactly where those locations are, but if they're there, we will, and the stone has got good integrity, we will salvage and reinstall. Jack or Sarah, do you have anything to add on that?
I would add that the project team between Berglund and Wish Janey is really committed to preservation. And if there's anything that we can salvage, we're definitely going to salvage it and incorporate it in use in other spots of the stone, but of the church. It's very, very difficult to pinpoint, that 25%, Commissioner. But we will do our best to salvage whatever we can and make the best use of it.
Commissioner Ponce, you?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was just wondering if there was a specific location of this 25% of an area of where maybe the weather conditions didn't get to it, or is it just how did you arrive to the 25? Because it does seem that the stone, didn't really do well over time, and so that really is 100% removal.
Okay. Commissioner Hughes.
Could I add, especially at the bell tower, I think that's where our crew is really concerned that the 100%, this is Pastor Luther Mason, sorry about that. But there are places on the rest of the building, once we do the rest of the facade, I'm sure that Jack and Rachel will agree with this, that there are some places that the elements did not affect it as well. But this bell tower, the team has really done a good job of going through that and trying to figure that piece out with that 25%. But we have been assured that we will much recycling as we can.
Got it.
The bell tower just might not be the place.
Right. Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I first of all, just want to commend you for the undertaking of this, because this is quite the staple and a really, really beautiful landmark. And so full support. I want to start with that. But I did have a question about the stone, specifically the coloration. It seems like, I think there was maybe 10 mentioned, 10 different colors that you guys were considering to pick up the hue range, but even within the pieces of stone, it seems like there's significant coloration, like within one block. So is that going to be captured? Because it looked like, and Larry, I don't know if you can go to the sample, but it looked like maybe the sample is all one hue of color, as opposed to the ranging coloration that happens within each shape.
You're correct on your observation, Commissioner. The sample that you're seeing, we really were at that point in time really trying to get the profile of the stone to make sure that would be achievable, with this casting process. The coloration that you're seeing, those others, that will be part of an ongoing process now to introduce different pigmentings into the matrix to make sure that we pick that up. So that's going to be all part of our process over the next few months.
Okay, and then my follow-up to that was, and hopefully you guys are able to achieve that. I really appreciate that this stone is going to last so much longer and, you know, be a much more durable option for the structure. So hopefully we're able to get the coloration right. Is the facade, I know you guys have mentioned, it's been touched on here and there, that the rest of the facade is being restored as well. Is that happening concurrently?
No.
Okay. Okay, so you guys do plan on saving, hopefully, fingers crossed, that 25% to plug back into the facade. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, if we can salvage anything from the bell tower and reuse it on the bell tower, we will. If it's not reusable on the bell tower, or potentially reusable for like a Dutchman or other things on the main building facade, yes, we will try to salvage that. I would say it's not, if it's salvageable, it's not going in the dumpster. So that's sort of the plan for that. The other thing on the main building, which was alluded to, is there's it's a little bit different color because at portions, because we have a yellow crust on the stone that's formed. So it's not necessarily going to be a 1-for-1 when the main building is performed. But I think we, you know, as Jack alluded to, we definitely are very preservation minded. So we will salvage and try to use either on the bell tower or save for attic stock for future installation.
Sounds good. Thank you guys. And I'm excited to see this project underway.
Thank you. Commissioner Fair.
Thanks. You know, I agree with Commissioner Hughes' outlook. Excellent job on everything that you all put together so far. Seems like you guys have done a thorough investigation, and you know, particularly happy to see the cast stone approach for restoring the bell tower. This is a question that maybe piggybacks off of Commissioner Wong's initial comment just about the nominal kind of thickness of those cast stone, and maybe, you know, it begs to question just I guess the original kind of architectural character that the building had. It's tough to tell from some of the black and white images, and you know, obviously the current images that we have from today show a much heavy weathered stone. But just curious for that bell tower, from what you all know from all the records you've seen, was that a very planar surface, or were there kind of the character of the stone? Was it more so kind of a natural kind of rougher profile along those facades? So it's kind of a question to you all, and if that is the case, to what degree has that been taken into consideration for the new cast stone?
Well, Commissioner Fair, the stone as you see it today almost looks like it's rusticated or rocked face because of the deterioration and the erosion. The original stone is more of a plane in profile in what you're seeing here on the screen, with the exception of water tables and brackets that project out.
Okay, thank you.
And I have seen in some older pictures that do not pixelate, that it does appear, as Jack said, to be more smooth surface. There are a few stones that did not get affected on the church that you can see it. There's some old black and whites that you can blow up, and I hate to say it like this, but it's as smooth as the baby's you know what. And today just does not, what you see today does not give justice to what the plan was for this stone. And it's just too bad that they didn't know 100 and some odd years ago that this would happen. But we have been very happy with the cast sample, and it will be really interesting to see when that all comes in, the different sizes of how this will fit back to where we'll see what it looked like 140 years ago.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think the only other thing I would add is, just some of the other comments echoing them about just the pigmentation of that sample, having some variation in there, I think will help blend the work that's starting at the tower with what may be future phases of work and additional restoration.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns.
Thank you, Chairman. I share my colleagues' congratulations for this very ambitious and exciting project. It will be amazing to see it's such a beautiful structure. My question is for Pastor Mason. As I'm sure you know as well as anyone, the Pullman community is fiercely protective of its sites and the beautiful buildings. And so I'm just curious about what, if any, outreach plan the church has beyond its own congregation to be proactive about communicating the nature of this project and the protections and the plans with the community, neighbors in Pullman in particular, to make sure that they are in support of the project rather than in opposition to it once it already starts.
Yes, Commissioner, we have had full-on support from the community. We actually, our first town hall meeting in 2016, we actually had more people in the sanctuary than we've had for church to hear how this is going to be done. With putting together such a team as Berglund and WJE, it even brought more support from the community because they're known for their work. So we are continually, I always put out updates continuously through the different social medias through the community, the church's social media, not just social media. We've had lots of coverage in the news as well. Support as in prayers and in other things has been great. And support financially has trickled in from the community as well. So the support is there. It's amazing that after 130 years, these last 10 years has been the real work of making this come true. And
well,
yes.
Congratulations on that, Pastor. I believe I was at that 2016 meeting. But folks forget sometimes what happened, and there's been so much more attention. So I'm thrilled to hear, not surprised by, but thrilled to hear about your continued outreach and keeping the community involved in knowing what's happening and invested, and how wonderful that it's actually yielding some fundraising results as well. So congratulations.
It is. Thank you.
Commissioner Jekowitz.
Thanks, Chairman. So yeah, just it's a wonderful project. It's a extremely unique church, and congratulations to everyone for getting to this stage. And it definitely seems like the team is the right team, is a very sensitive team to the preservation and restoration of it. I had one question, which I'm not sure the answer. I'm just curious if there was thought about it, but in terms of whether it's 100% or removal of the stone, or if there is an opportunity to save the 25%, how does that, not just in the thickness of the material, but how does that integration occur? And will that, I mean, will it look strange with the, how does that integrate with the a man-made stone and the natural stone? And I think that's got to be, you have to be very careful on how you start to put that together, especially even in, they're going to weather differently and those kind of things. So I was just wondering if there was other thought there.
I mean, typically we would try to group any salvage elements together when possible, and that might be and it's going to depend on what we can get, right? Like what, and so knowing that yes, it will weather and behave a little bit differently, that tends to be the approach. And like I mentioned before, it might be salvaging like larger stones, but the whole stone itself is not good, but keeping elements to eventually do Dutchman repairs or other smaller repairs on the stone. So I would say typically we try to keep the original material together and then any replacement material together, and it would we know like the bands and the water tables there's going to be no salvage stone from those because those have taken a severe weathering deterioration. But, if there's elements like on the backside, right, that's above the roof, that, just things like that, where we would look at the aesthetics of it and really what we have available to us.
Right. It'll
And
be
be
stone by stone.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it will be. I mean, there's going to be shop drawings done for each of the stones. So it will be a stone by stone process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan, I think you wanted to comment on something?
I was just going to add, just to be clear, the permit review committee's conditional approval was that 100% of the serpentine on the tower, would be removed and be replaced. Obviously, like we're talking about, if we can salvage some of that, it would be salvaged and to be placed on other portions of the building. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. If there are no other questions, I was going to turn this over to Pastor Mason, if you had additional comments.
I would just like to say thank you for this opportunity for the church to continue as a community center. Thank you all for your support. Overwhelmingly, I just smile when I hear you guys very much support this. It has made my job easier in selling this to other grantors, that we will finish this. We will raise, we will repair, we will restore not only this historic building, but keep this congregation that started out as they were building the town in 1880 and actually trying to rent this church before the Presbyterians did. And if you ever wanted to hear that whole story, it's an amazing story of how we have persisted in mission and ministry here. And what this will do will just allow hopefully 10 pastors after me to be that community center. So we just thank you, and come on out when we're doing this, check us out, and be a part of our family. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Mason. And don't forget, don't throw anything out in that dumpster.
You already know I've got a bucket full of them and just trying to find the right thing to mount them in, or the little cases you put baseballs in.
Exactly.
Commissioner Wong, you're on it. I'll have the first one for all of you all.
Wonderful. Alderman Beal, is he available today?
I'm not sure if he was. We saw him this weekend and he was aware of it. And we set up, Dan sent stuff out and I sent some last minute things out to him, but I'm not sure. But every time that we're together, I always keep in his ear about it. And he's always been very supportive of it. So hopefully at the next step, he'll give us a great rah-rah.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you,
Yes.
Pastor. With that, if there's no other questions, I'd like to request a motion to approve a resolution for a citywide adopt a landmark fund for the Greenstone Church. Is there a motion?
So moved, Commissioner Burns.
Thank you. And a second?
Second, Commissioner Ponce.
Okay. I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Jekowitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Cox?
Yes.
Commissioner Fair?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Tolliver?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing the progress on this. Let's see, where are we? Now, the third item is the Citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund. This is informational for the completed project of the Glessner House located at 1800 South Prairie Avenue in the 3rd Ward. There's no resolution before the commission for this agenda item. It's informational only. And Dan, go ahead and take it away.
Good afternoon again, commissioners. You may recall that in February of 2022, you approved a $100,000 Adopt a Landmark grant for Glessner House. I'm here today to tell you that the work is now complete, and this is an informational report summarizing what was done. For orientation, Glessner House is located at 1800 South Prairie Avenue within the Near South Side community area and 3rd Ward. Commissioned in 1885 by John J. Glessner, a prominent Chicago business and cultural leader, Glessner House was designed by architect Henry Hobson Richardson. The house was built on Prairie Avenue when the Near South Side was Chicago's most fashionable residential location. It was designated as a Chicago landmark in 1970 and today is owned and operated by Glessner House Museum. Overall, although the scope of work for the Adopt a Landmark proposal was not extensive, it did include a series of specific masonry, roofing, and gutter projects at multiple locations on the building that addressed leaking that threatened the building's interior spaces, especially the Simmerling Gallery in the southeast corner of the building. This scope of work was developed after assessments were completed in 2020 and 2021, including water infiltration testing by Glessner's team, which included Wisjani Elsner, Berglund Construction, and Jones and Cleary Roofing. These illustrations show the multiple areas of the building that were addressed. Again, all of the work has been completed, and I do have a few slides to show a sample of the work. This particular image shows before and after images of the gutter and collector box flashing repairs that were completed on the southeast corner of the building at the gabled roof. On this image, you can see a sample of an open mortar joint on the gabled end of the building and a photo of the finished repointing sealant work to address it. This slide shows before and after images of some of the chimney flashing and masonry conditions that were addressed. And finally, this image shows the copper roof over the 2nd floor hall where leakage was produced during testing. Various punctures and seams were addressed in this area of the roof. Again, the grant award was $100,000 and the total budget for the project was $108,165. And in the end, the project came in almost exactly at the budgeted amount. Charles Pipel was the inspecting architect on the project, and Mr. Pipel provided a final report on the project, which staff utilized in its own inspection of the work too. This concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. William Tyre of Glessner House Museum is in attendance with me as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Does the commission have any questions of Dan on this project? If not, Mr. Tyre, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you. On behalf of the Glessner House Board and staff, I would just like to once again extend our thanks for this grant. This was a very large project. The total budget over 3 years was about $300,000. So the Adopt a Landmark grant was the critical piece to allow us to move forward and finish this whole series of repairs that corrected problems that have actually been plaguing the building in some cases back to the 1970s. So I have to say it was a much more restful summer this year when it rained, not having to run around and be checking corners and walls and ceilings to see what issues we had. So far, we can say everything has worked perfectly. We are confident that the work is successful, and we will be proceeding with interior repairs to plaster and things in the coming year. So again, very grateful for this, an absolutely fantastic team from Wisjani, Jones and Cleary and Berglund allowed the work to proceed, and we hope that that this will serve as a model for other landmarks that are receiving grants, and we are always happy to advise. So if you're aware of anybody who would like to reach out to us, please feel free to do so. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Tyre. Does any of the commission have any questions for Mr. Tyre? That's wonderful. We're delighted that we could accommodate this for the Adopt a Landmark Fund. The last item on the agenda, no, it's not the last one. The fourth item on the agenda is the program committee report, recommendations to the Illinois Historic Sites Advisory Council and nominations to the National Register of Historic Places were the Muddy Waters House at 4339 South Lake Park, the Stone Temple Baptist Church at 3620 to 3624 West Douglas Boulevard, and the Schlitz Brewery Tide House at 9401 South Ewing Avenue. And the report and suggestions received from the public for possible Chicago landmark designations was September 9th, 2022. And Commissioner Talifer, if you could give us a report.
I want to report that the program committee met on September 22nd to hear public comments on 6 suggestions for possible Chicago landmark designation that have been received from the public since the previous program committee meeting. The suggestions and comments have been forwarded to Historic Preservation Division staff for further review and consideration. No action by the full commission is needed. I also want to report that the program committee reviewed, on behalf of the commission, 3 nominations to the National Register for Historic Places. The commission's review of these nominations is under its authority as a certified local government under the National Historic Preservation Act, which gives the commission the opportunity to comment on National Register nominations for Chicago properties. The nominations are listed on today's commission agenda and are for Muddy Waters House, 4339 South Lake Park Avenue in the 4th Ward, Stone Temple Baptist Church, 3620-3624 West Douglas Boulevard in the 24th Ward, and the Schlitz Brewery Tide House located at 9401 South Ewing Avenue in the 10th Ward. The program committee voted to recommend that the full commission support these National Register nominations. You received a recommendation to that effect in your packets. This concludes our report.
Thank you, Commissioner Tolliver. Any questions for Commissioner Tolliver on the report? Seeing none, I'd like to request a motion to approve the recommendations of the program committee on the 3 nominations to the National Register of Historic Places. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Commissioner Jekowitz.
Seconded, Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you. Do the roll call real quick. Commissioner Cox?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Fair?
Yes.
Commissioner Ponce?
Yes.
Commissioner Tolliver? Oh, yeah, Commissioner Tolliver.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. The motion carries unanimously. Those 3 projects are fantastic. We're looking forward to it. The Permit Review Committee reports were reviewed on September 8th, 2022, and I want to call on Commissioner Jekowitz for the report.
Thank you, Chairman. The Permit Review Committee reviewed 2 projects at its September 8th, 2022 meeting. Both projects were approved with conditions. The report summarizing the scope of the proposed projects and the committee's decisions was included in your packets. This report is for your information and for the record.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And Emily, do you have further info?
Yes, for the month of August, staff reviewed 157 permit applications. A total of 176 reviews were performed by staff, and the average number of days to issue approval or corrections was 3 days.
Wonderful. And lastly, I'd like to make an announcement that the 2022 Preservation Excellence Awards will be a virtual ceremony on Tuesday, November 1st at 3:00 p.m. The attendees get to check in at 2:30, and the location is chicago.gov/CCL for the link, and we look forward to that. With no further business, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So, Commissioner Jacobowitz.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All in
Commissioner.
favor?
Aye.
Say- All
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned, and Commissioner Jacobowitz, what time does the permit review committee start?
I believe we're allowed to start at 1:55.
Okay,
So let's
10
do that.
minutes.
Yeah.
Sounds good. 10 minutes from
All
now.
right. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.